Have you ever learned a new English word, felt really happy, and thought, great, I'll never forget this word? Then, a few days later, or maybe even the next morning, you needed that same word. You knew you'd seen it before. You remembered studying it. You could almost see it in your mind, but you just couldn't remember it. It's a strange feeling. It's like the word is hiding somewhere inside your brain. You know it's there, but you can't find it? Maybe this has happened to you. You're watching a movie. Suddenly you hear a word and think, oh, I know that word. But before you can remember what it means, the movie continues, and the word disappears again. Or maybe someone asks you a simple question in English. You know the perfect word to answer. You've studied it before. You've written it in your notebook. You've even practiced it. But when it's time to say it, it's gone. A few hours later, you're walking home, and suddenly, the word comes back. You remember it perfectly. You stop and think, why couldn't I remember it earlier? If this sounds familiar, I have some good news for you. There is nothing wrong with your memory. You're probably not forgetting English as much as you think. In fact, most English learners experience exactly the same thing. And today, I'd like to explain why this happens. Because once you understand the real reason, you'll stop feeling frustrated every time you forget a word. You'll also learn a much better way to remember new vocabulary, not just for a few hours, but for a very long time. So, let's talk about it. Let me tell you something that might surprise you. Your brain doesn't decide to remember a word simply because you've studied it. It decides to remember a word because it believes you'll need it again. Think about your own language for a moment. Can you remember the name of your favorite restaurant? Probably. Can you remember your best friend's phone number from years ago? Maybe. Can you remember the first English word you studied 6 months ago? Probably not. Does that mean you have a bad memory? Not at all. It simply means your brain is always asking one question. Is this information important? If the answer is yes, it keeps it. If the answer is no, it slowly lets it go. That's exactly what happens with English vocabulary. Many learners spend hours reading long lists of words. They read them once. They read them twice. Maybe they even memorized them for tomorrow's test. But after a few days, most of those words disappear. Why? Because the brain never had a reason to keep them. Imagine you learn the word umbrella. You write it down. You repeat it 5 times. Then you close your notebook. And that's the end of your relationship with that word. Your brain thinks, I guess we don't really need this. So it slowly moves the word further and further away. Now imagine something different. The next day, it starts raining. You see people walking with umbrellas. You hear someone say, "Don't forget your umbrella." Later that evening, you watch a video where someone says, "I bought a new umbrella." Then a friend asks you, Do you have an umbrella? Suddenly, the same word has appeared several times in real life. Now your brain starts paying attention. It says, "Wait a minute. This word keeps coming back. Maybe it's important." And that's when the word becomes much easier to remember. You see, your brain loves repetition, but not the kind of repetition most people think about. Reading the same word 20 times in 1 minute isn't very helpful. Seeing the same word in different situations over several days, that's much more powerful. That's how children learn new words. They don't memorize vocabulary lists. They hear words while playing, while eating, while talking, while listening. The same words appear again and again in different situations. Little by little, those words become part of their everyday language. The good news is, your brain still learns in exactly the same way, even as an adult. That's why learning vocabulary through real conversations, stories, podcasts, and everyday situations usually works much better than simply memorizing long word lists. There's another reason we forget new words so quickly. Sometimes we try to learn too many words at once. Imagine someone gives you 100 new words today. Could you remember all of them tomorrow? Probably not. And that's completely normal. Your brain isn't designed to keep every new piece of information forever. It needs time. It needs repetition. And most importantly, it needs meaningful experiences. Let's imagine you learn 10 new words today. Tomorrow, you remember 6? A week later, you remember 4? At first, that might feel disappointing. But look at it another way. Those 4 words are now becoming part of your English. That's real progress. Learning a language isn't about remembering everything. It's about slowly building a vocabulary that stays with you. Here's something I want you to stop doing. Don't get angry with yourself every time you forget a word. Instead, ask yourself, when was the last time I actually used this word? Many times, the answer is never. If you've never used a word, it's completely normal to forget it. Words become stronger every time you use them. The first time feels difficult. The second time feels a little easier. The third time, you don't have to think as much. And after enough practice, the word becomes automatic. Think about the word hello. Do you have to stop and remember it? Of course not. Why? Because you've heard it, read it, and probably said it hundreds of times. Now compare that with a word you learned yesterday. Your brain simply hasn't had enough time with it yet. And that's okay. Language learning is not a race. You don't win by learning the most words in one day. You win by keeping the words you actually need. So the next time you learn a new word, don't just write it in your notebook. Use it. Say it out loud. Write one simple sentence with it. Listen for it in videos. Notice it when you're reading. Smile when you hear it again. Every time you meet that word, you're making the connection a little stronger. Over time, those small connections become something amazing. One day, you'll hear the word and understand it immediately. Another day, you'll say it without thinking. And eventually, you'll forget that it was ever a difficult word. That's how vocabulary grows. Not all at once, but one word, one sentence, and one real-life moment at a time. Before we finish today's episode, I'd like you to remember one simple idea. Forgetting isn't the opposite of learning. It's part of learning. Every time you forget a word, and then remember it again, the connection becomes a little stronger. So don't be afraid of forgetting. Instead, see it as another chance to meet the word again. The next time you learn a new English word, try something different. Don't ask yourself, how can I memorize this word? Ask yourself, how can I use this word today? Maybe you can say it while you're making breakfast. Maybe you can write one short sentence. Maybe you can use it in a message to a friend. Or maybe you'll hear it in a podcast tomorrow. The more ways you meet a word, the more familiar it becomes. And familiar words are much easier to remember. Here's a small challenge for you. Today, choose only 3 new English words. Not 30. Not 50. Just 3. Learn what they mean. Say them out loud. Use each one in a simple sentence. Then, tomorrow, try to use those same 3 words again. You might be surprised by how much easier they are to remember. Sometimes, learning less actually helps you remember more. And that's something many English learners don't realize. If you've been feeling frustrated because you keep forgetting vocabulary, I hope today's conversation helped you see things differently. Your brain isn't working against you. It's simply waiting for a reason to keep those words. Give your brain that reason. Use English a little every day. Read a little. Listen a little. Speak a little. Those small moments matter much more than one long study session once a week. Remember, fluent speakers don't know every English word. No one does. They simply know the words they use again and again. And you can build that same kind of vocabulary, one day at a time. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. I hope this episode made you feel a little more confident and a little less worried about forgetting English words. If you learned something new today, the best thing you can do is use it. Because words become memories. When they become part of your life, in our next episode, we're going to talk about something that surprises almost every English learner. Why do some people study English for years, but still don't feel like they're improving? We'll explore what's really happening and what you can do to keep moving forward. Until then, take care of yourself. Keep listening. Keep learning. And keep using your English. One word at a time. Before I say goodbye, I'd like to share one last story with you. Imagine 2 English learners. The first learner studies 50 new words every weekend. By Friday, most of those words are gone. So the next weekend, they study 50 more. And the same thing happens again. The second learner is different. She learns only 5 new words. But she uses them every day. She says them while making breakfast. She writes them in a short journal. She listens for them in podcasts. She smiles every time she hears one of them in a movie. A week later, she still remembers those 5 words. A month later, she's still using them. Now ask yourself, which learner is making more progress? The answer isn't the person learning more words. It's the person building stronger connections. That's the secret many people never discover. Learning English isn't about collecting vocabulary. It's about making vocabulary part of your daily life. Even 5 minutes can make a difference. If you're waiting for an hour of free time, you may never start. But almost everyone has 5 minutes. 5 minutes while drinking coffee, 5 minutes before going to bed, 5 minutes while waiting for the bus. Those small moments are enough. One new word, one simple sentence, one short conversation, day after day, week after week. Those tiny steps become something much bigger. One day you'll be watching a movie, and you'll notice something. You're no longer translating every word. Another day, you'll be talking to someone, and the right word will come to your mind without any effort. Not because you have a perfect memory, but because that word has become part of your life. So the next time you forget an English word, don't say, "My memory is terrible." Instead, smile and say, "I just haven't met this word enough times yet." That's a completely different way of thinking. And sometimes, changing the way you think is the first step to changing the way you learn. Thank you for being here with me today. I truly hope this conversation encouraged you to keep going. Remember, you don't need to remember every word. You only need to keep meeting English every day, little by little, word by word. You'll be surprised by how much you can remember. And I'll be here with you in the next episode.